upload this video or to upload this tutorial. I filmed this tutorial before I went to Europe, started editing it, but the dress, like the fabric that I used was so see-through, so I wasn't able to show you the final dress, and I just felt like if I already make a tutorial and I want to show you how to make like a mini dress sewing pattern into a maxi dress, I want to be able to also show you the finished product. But I was just very unhappy with, I don't know, like everything, like the way I filmed it. Like I was rushing it because I didn't have a lot of time before, because I had to go home, pack my bags. I don't know, like, so I really feel bad that it took me so long, but now I'm here and now I know how to make this video much better. So in the end, I'm really sorry that it came much later, but I think now the final video is going to be much better than what I had originally filmed. And in case you don't know what we're going to make, we're going to turn the Leo dress, which is a mini dress, into a maxi dress, which I think is the most beautiful dress. Like when you go to a wedding, when you go to a date night, like mini dress. Like I love the mini dress during summer, during the day, but then once it's a maxi dress, it's going to be so elegant with an open back. So yeah, I'm going to show you in this video today how to turn it into a maxi dress, and then we're going to sew it together, and then I'm going to show you the finished dress. It is super easy to turn it into a maxi dress. We take our sewing pattern. If you maybe already made the mini version, then you have it already printed out, and we have three pattern pieces. We have the back pattern piece, we have the front, and we have the straps. And the straps we can just put to the side. We're not going to change anything for the strap sewing pattern, but we're gonna make the front and the back longer. Like all we're gonna do is we're gonna extend the sewing pattern, make it longer, and then we also need to make it wider so we have more leg movement. So that's what we're gonna do now. You need to figure out how long you want your dress to be. I am 171 centimeters tall. I'm gonna make my new sewing pattern now 75 centimeters longer. This is gonna be long enough to have enough seam allowance. I don't wanna wear heels with it. Like I'm gonna wear this dress, if I wear it, like once I wear it, I'm gonna wear it with flats or with sandals, probably not with heels, because I just don't wear a lot of heels. I originally wanted to use chiffon fabric to show you just that you can also do it with different fabric. The chiffon fabric that I used for the tutorial that I decided now not to post was so see-through, which was like, that's why it was a disaster. Like it was just way too thin. But you can 100% use chiffon fabric. I'm gonna insert a photo here when I used chiffon fabric with like this Leo print, which so many people loved, and I love it too. So that's why I bought a yellow chiffon fabric, but it was just like from a different shop and just not as nice quality. So I'm gonna use a linen and viscose blend again. I'm gonna make it in like this cream white color. But yeah, you can use linen and viscose blend, you can use chiffon fabric, you can use a satin fabric. I would just recommend you, because we're gonna cut the dress on bias and we're gonna have a little cowl neckline or waterfall neckline, whatever you wanna call it. So just make sure that your fabric isn't so stiff, that it's nice and flowy, and that it drapes well. And then you also need some bias tape. If you don't have some, like me, like I don't have some, so I'm just gonna make my own. But yeah, I'm talking a lot. Let's go make the sewing pattern. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do now is I got the back pattern piece and I'm going to place it. I just use like brown packaging paper, which is super handy for making sewing patterns in my opinion. And now I'm just going to place it in the middle. You want to make sure that there's enough space on the sides, because when we're going to make the sewing pattern wider towards the end. But the first thing I'm going to do now is I'm just going to trace around it. So it's gonna look like this now. And so here's the end of the mini dress, and what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna measure 75 centimeters down from the mini dress, and then I'm gonna draw a straight line here, and then what we need to do is we're gonna make it wider, and then we need to connect it to those points here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure the length here. Mine is a size small and it is 54 centimeters, and then I'm just going to divide it by 2, which is 27. So now I have the middle, and now I'm just going to draw a straight line down, just so then I also know where So now this is going to be the end of our maxi dress, and if I would measure 20 centimeters this way and 20 centimeters this way, then it would be as wide as a mini dress, but we definitely need to make it a bit wider so we have more leg movement. This depends now a bit on you, depending how wide you want your dress to be. So it would be, if we wouldn't change anything, it would be 27 centimeters, which would be right here. I'm going to add 10 centimeters on each side. So I'm going to make it 38 centimeters from the middle this way. Oh, sorry, 37 centimeters if I add 10 centimeters. And 37 this way. And now what we need to do is we need to draw maybe not a straight line, more like a curved line. So we're basically just going to extend this line until it hits our new point, which is this one. Ignore this. And now I'm doing the same on the other side. And now we're just gonna cut it out. Just always make sure that you use your paper scissors and not your fabric scissors when you cut out paper. And as you can see, this is the original sewing pattern, but then instead of starting right here, I made it go this, just so it's a bit of a smoother transition into a maxi dress. And the thing that you can do now, you can fold it in half, the whole sewing pattern, and to just make sure that it's all symmetrical, especially towards the part that we have added. And yeah, because it's because it's a symmetrical dress, it's super easy to check that. So just fold it in half, and maybe you had to adjust a few centimeters on the sides because we're just like hand drawing the extension. So maybe you had to adjust a little bit or to even it out. And now I'm just gonna write on here, Leo dress, size small. And you just need to make sure that you set yourself a reminder here that you need to cut it on bias. You can also write it here, cut on bias, cut times 1. And now we're going to do exactly the same to the front of the dress. Now I'm going to make it 75 centimeters longer again. And I'm going to find the middle here again. So now I did the same again that we did to the back piece. So here's the middle. Then I measured first 27 centimeters this direction, which is the original width of the front pattern piece, and then I added 10 centimeters. So from the middle it's 37 centimeters this direction and 37 centimeters this direction. So that should be 74 if I'm not wrong. So yeah, the new width of the bottom of the front dress is 74 centimeters. And now we're just gonna connect it again, these points here to up here. What you can also do now is you could fold it in half now. So I'm just going to flip it around. And now, as you can see, the mini dress is lining up perfectly. And now, where did I put my scissors? Here. Now I'm just going to cut this out. Now we need to cut out our fabric. So you need to cut out the front ones, the back ones, and the straps twice. And then you also need some bias tape. It needs to be around, I think, 60 centimeters long. And either what saves you time is if you just go and buy bias tape matching the color of your fabric. Like I would recommend you that it matches your fabric. Or you can just do it like me, make your own quickly from your fabric. You just need to cut out a strip of fabric, cut it on bias. Mine is 4 centimeters wide. Like when I cut it out, it was 4 centimeters wide. And then I used this little bias tape foot thing that helps you iron it. In the original sewing, not sewing pattern YouTube tutorial for the Leo dress, I show you how to do it. But yeah, you just need around 60 centimeters of bias tape, the front, the back, and 2 times the straps. Ooh. And because the sewing pattern is really long and we need to cut it out on bias, I would recommend you to cut it out on the floor, which is what I'm going to do now, just because my table is not big enough. So yeah, let's do it on the floor. So now I placed my 2 sewing patterns onto the fabric. Try to put them on bias, like at a 45-degree angle. With this one, it's a bit hard with the front one because it's so long. So just try to put it as much as possible on bias. And now I'm going to cut it out. I'm not going to film it because I have to crawl around on the floor, but I'll see you in a second. The first thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to start with the straps. If your fabric has a good and a bad side, you want to make sure that your good side, like the right side, is facing you. And then you fold it in half, and then it depends how wide you want your straps to be. I'm going to sew with a 1 centimeter seam allowance away from the folded edge, and I'm going to repeat it for the second strap as well. Then I take my scissors and I'm just going to cut some of that excess fabric off. Then I take my loop turner. You could also do this with a safety pin. And I'm just going to flip it. And then I'm going to do the same to the other strap. Then I have ironed my straps, and now we're going to cut them a bit shorter. I always like when the sewing pattern for straps are a bit longer because it's just easier cutting them shorter later on. So they need to be 37 centimeters long. And now we can put the straps to the side for now. And now we take our back pattern piece, and if your fabric again has a right and a wrong side, good and bad side, you want to make sure that the good side is facing you now. And then you take your bias tape and you open it up, and then you just pin it along here. Either you can pin it all the way along. I'm just going to pin the first few centimeters, and then I'm just going to sew slowly in place, put everything in place while I sew. And now when we sew, you want to make sure that you stitch right where the folded line here is. And then we do that all the way around here. And now we need to make some little cuts here, because otherwise there's going to be too much fabric built up. And this way it's just going to be easier to fold it over the bias tape. Just make sure that you don't cut too close to the seam. And you mainly have to do it where there's, where there's like the big strong curve. Not so much up here, but here where the curve is. And then what we're going to do, we're going to flip it with the inside of the dress facing us. And then we're going to fold the bias tape towards the inside like this. So we're just going to fold it over. And then again, we're going to sew relatively close to this edge, like around here. And we're going to do that all the way around. Now we take our front piece, and this is where we're going to fold it down later. So this is the very top of the front, and we're just going to overlock from here till over here. If you don't have an overlock machine, you can just do a zigzag stitch along it. We're just doing this so the fabric is not going to fray. Now I'm just going to cut off the excess bias tape. And now we take our front piece again, and you want to make sure, if your fabric has a good and a bad, that the good side, the right side, is facing you. And now we're going to fold it down the top part, and we make sure that the armhole, basically it's not really the armhole, but this part here is lining up perfectly, and then the same on the other side. And then we're gonna pin along here, and we pin along here. And then we take our straps, and we need to sandwich it in between here at the very top. So I'm going to take this one out again, place it here, and pin it in place. And then I'm going to do the same on the other side. And now when we sew, we're gonna sew with a 1 centimeter seam allowance along here. And then when we get to where the strap is, you're gonna sew at an angle like this. This is just gonna make the strap and the cowl neckline fall nicer. I'm gonna show you while I'm doing it, but you're gonna sew along here. Then when you get to the strap, just lift the foot, make sure the needle is down, and then sew across like this. And now what we're gonna do, you make sure that your strap did not get twisted, and then you place it right in the top here, pin it in place, and then we're just gonna quickly sew the strap on here. So don't fold this down, keep this open, and just sew across here, just so the strap is sewn in, and then we're gonna do the same on the other side. And you just sew across here. And also make sure that the seam allowance here, that you don't sew it on here, that it's up. So you really just want to sew the strap onto this one layer of fabric. So here we have the front again in front of us. Now I'm going to fold this open and we take the back of our dress. And so this here is, I need to iron this a bit nicer, but this here is the good side, which means that this is the bad side. And you want to make sure that the good side and the good side are facing each other. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take this corner here on top, and you want to make sure that it's sticking out like this. Pin it in place. And then we're going to pin down here. So we're going to pin now the 3 layers. So we're basically going to sandwich the back in between the 2 front layers. And then we're just going to pin all the way to the end and do the same on the other side. So I've pinned everything in place now, and this is what it looks like. So you just really need to make sure that the corners here are sticking out like this, and then also the same on the other side. And now we're just gonna sew with a 1 centimeter seam allowance from the top all the way to the bottom. And then we need to press our seams open, and then we overlock it. I forgot to do this. So you just want to cut off this part now, which was from the back piece. So just cut that off on this side and then also cut it off on this side. I mean, you could also cut it off with your overlock machine, but sometimes I feel like it could get your machine stuck. So just cut it off. And then you also want to overlock this part here. Now I just need to finish off my overlock seam, so I'm just going to cut a bit off. Then I take this big needle here, push it through here. Now there's 2 steps left to do. Number 1 is to hem the dress. Before you hem it, I would recommend you to try it on. And then what we're also going to do is, so we have this part here at the front of the dress, and what we're going to do, we're going to fold it open a bit, and then we're going to sew the seam allowance, this part here, onto the inside of the dress, onto the lining part. Okay, so I just tried my dress on and it is a bit too long for me, so I'm just gonna make it a few centimeters shorter. So I would really recommend you to try it on before you hem it, just so you can figure out if the length is good, if you want to make it a bit shorter, how wide your hem needs to be. So I'm gonna shorten mine now, I think around 5 centimeters, and then I'm gonna have a pretty small hem. Like then I'm gonna fold it up 1 centimeter and 1 centimeter again. And now when we sew, I would just recommend you to start at the back, because we're always going to do a bit of front and back stitching, and it just looks nicer when it's at the back and not at the front of the dress. And you just go all the way around. Then I would recommend ironing it, and then we're finished.